Gerald Celente from the Trends Research Institute. Good to see you again.
Oh, great seeing you.
And now we're on a different venue. Last time we saw you about 4 years ago, Cody and I were doing the Happy Hour show on the Fox Business Network. And now we're at WallStreetAllStars.com. Great website. Everybody has to subscribe, check it out. But we wanted to make a point to get back to you because 4 years ago, before all of this blew up in the economy and before just down the street you have these demonstrations, you predicted all of this on Happy Hour.
Yes, there was no recovery. And when we see now where the money has gone, it only went to save the too big to fails.
The bailouts.
That was it.
They bailed out their bottom lines and that's it.
Yeah, they bailed out their buddies. Matter of fact, those 4 words, too big to fail, that's the death of capitalism. The merger of state and corporate powers, by definition, is called fascism. Mm-hmm. And so when you hear all of these politicians now that are running for the presidential GOP slate, talking about this being an anti-capitalist movement on Wall Street, they have it wrong.
Really?
Yeah, it's not anti-capitalist. Capitalist would have been not to bail out the banks. That's what capitalism is. Oh, you can't, you know, and this whole other thing that we have to save the banks. Oh my God, we have to save the banks. Who made this stuff up?
Right. It's just another business.
That's all it is.
Right.
One goes down, another one fills its spot. But when you look at the players, Wall Street has hijacked Washington. Mm-hmm. Look at who was the Treasury Secretary under Clinton.
So with this Occupy Wall Street, you know, a lot of people do perceive it as they want a socialist type of government. They want the government maybe not to help Wall Street, but to help them to bail out the homeowner who's losing his or her home. In that way, it's perceived as being a socialist movement. They want to redistribute wealth.
That's not the way we see it. We've been down there. And the people that we've talked to, it's a cross between a Ron Paul, it's a mishmash of people.
Right.
You know, there's no one voice. And there are a lot of people that are just angry about what's going on. You see, you know that saying, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore? That's that you think about. This is, I'm hungry as hell and I'm not going to stand for it anymore. It's a gut issue. It's not a head, it's a stomach issue. Mm-hmm. These people have no jobs. They have no future. You have students over there, $75,000, $100,000 in debt that they have to pay off from student loans. They're angry.
Right, right.
This is anger from the stomach, not from the head.
And so where does this go? Does this just dissipate and everybody will forget about it? Does this movement turn into another Tea Party where they have legitimate candidates they actually elect into office? What do you predict, since you're the predictor here?
Well, first, before I predict, let me say this, and you know how highly I respect you.
Thank you.
There's no such thing as a respectable candidate coming from the Gambinos or the Bananas.
Okay.
That's all it is. The Republicans and the Democrats.
So that's what you think of the two parties.
That's what I think. I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in that political
Okay, so
faith.
then again, my question would...
Where is it going?
Where is it going? Will this lead
Here's
to
where
another
it's going.
party? Maybe a party that somebody like you would like.
Here's where it's going. This is where it's going. It's First Trends Journal that you have right up there.
Okay, this one here, the first great war of the 21st century.
That's right.
Prepare, survive, prevail.
That's right. We wrote this. This was the spring edition.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is, this is just a replay of what's going on around the world. Let's go back a year ago in December. It happens in Tunisia. What did the media first say when it began in Tunisia? Oh, it's them Islamist fundamentalists. And then it happens over in Egypt a couple of weeks later. It's the Muslim Brotherhood, I tell you.
Okay.
And then it starts unraveling in Greece. Well, you know, in Greece, it's those anarchists. And then it happens in Bahrain, it happens in Yemen, it's happening in Syria, it's happening in Libya, it's happening in Italy, it's happening in Portugal. It happened this past summer in England.
So is that same happening here?
Exactly. It's the same thing. Far too few have much too much, and way too many have much too little. We wrote about it again right in this Winter Trends journal that was written just as the Tunisian uprisings, Students of the World Unite.
See, this is interesting
it has
too.
a common thread. It's a lot of young people with university degrees in worthlessness that are intelligent. This isn't neo-feudalism. They know the game is rigged.
Okay, so in these other countries, some of which you mentioned, they had actual regime change. They've made a difference.
No, they haven't.
You don't think so?
No. You look at Egypt. Again, by the way, we had 2 of our people in Egypt 2 days before it began by coincidence that were there throughout the whole time.
So you don't think anything's going to
No, it's
happen?
the same thing. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You cannot change a corrupt system. The Godfather's not going to be nice if you ask him to.
Regardless of who the Godfather is.
Exactly.
Because that changes a lot, you know.
It doesn't make any difference.
Let's talk about jobs. All of this stems from jobs. You have the Democrats and Republicans introducing all these jobs bills. They think they have the solution. Where are we going to go with jobs? There's so many people out of work. They're saying the real unemployment rate is like 18%.
They just made it possible to lose more jobs. The Senate and Congress did, actually. And President Obama. They just signed the bill. A free trade agreement, they call it, with Korea and Panama and Colombia. Free trade means letting the multinationals set up shop over there, cut the tariffs so they can bring back the crap and sell it here for a lower price. I mean, we're not stupid.
Yeah.
They've been doing the same game over and over, and they come out with the lines, we're creating jobs for the American people. Not if you talk to the textile industry that's really angry that they're offshoring the jobs to Korea.
Right.
So they're not creating jobs. It's been a takeover. I mentioned before about Clinton. You had Robert Rubin. Who was he from? He was from Goldman Sachs. He helped deregulate, passed the Graham-Wiley Act that deregulated Glass-Steagall. Then who comes in under the Bush administration the last time? Henry Paulson. He invents TARP. We have to save the people. Oh, and $13 billion of our dollars is going to Goldman Sachs.
They're not lending it out. No,
right.
no one's lending
and
any
where
of
was
the
he
money.
from?
Right.
Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
Who's Obama's chief of staff? Bill Daley from that wonderful Chicago Daily Machine, vice chairman of J.P. Morgan Chase.
So you don't seem very optimistic at all.
Not as long as the criminal operation is still in charge.
But you're saying that's both Democrats and Republicans.
Absolutely.
So then there's no hope.
There is hope, and that's this Trends journal.
Yeah.
This one right here. Global game changer. That one right
This
here.
one here. Direct democracy, global game changer. Okay, give me the summary.
Switzerland. One of the richest countries in the world. Food's good, nice place to visit. Everybody has a gun, they don't kill each other. If I ask you or a room full of people who the president of Switzerland is, nobody would know.
I don't know.
And you know why you don't know? Because he doesn't count. Well, she doesn't count. The people vote on major issues. You want to go to war? Let the people vote. You want to bail out the banks? Let the people vote. You want to keep the war on drugs? Let the people vote.
I mean, I'm from California, so you had a bit of that in California with all these propositions. Let the people vote on propositions, and California is a mess.
The country's a mess. Look at this past summer. We saw the D.C. drama queens, the Democrats, and the Beltway circle jerks, the Republicans, for 2 months put on a soap opera about the debt ceiling.
Oh.
You want to talk about inept and incompetent? So people say, well, if the people vote, then we'll have mob rule. Well, yeah, we have mob rule now. Again, they're the Republicans and the Democrats.
Right.
That's the mob. We do not have a representative form of government. The only people that they represent are the people that give them the most amount of money.
They're buddies. They're buddies.
Right, so if you call up your Senator Schumer over here and you say your name is Mary Smith, see how far you get. You get some flunky on the telephone. Then call
Right.
back and say you have a check for him for $30,000.
Now we're talking.
Now
you get them on the phone. Let's look at some of the market's been crazy as well. You know, you always make predictions about the markets and also gold. What are your thoughts on those two subjects?
Let's look at the markets. Let's look what happens in the last hour of trading, the last couple of weeks. Boom, the markets spike up. 60% of the markets are high-frequency trading. I read an interview from Bernie Madoff. It was February 27th in New York Magazine. He did it over the telephone. A relatively worthless article, other than two things that he said. One, he said that when he got into Wall Street and started getting into it, he realized the game is rigged for the members. The second thing he said, the United States is nothing more than one big Ponzi scheme.
Wow.
Now, this is coming from the king of Ponzi. So on the markets, it's a rigged game. On the Ponzi scheme, that brings you into gold. They're devaluing the dollar. Look what the price of gold has done. Let's go back to the markets in 1999. They're about almost that level now. And look at gold in 1999. It was about $270 an ounce. Now it's about, what, $1,660 an ounce. Hit as high as $1,922 an ounce. That's the devaluation of the dollar. Here's what's going to happen. They're doing it already. They're blaming Europe and blaming China for the problems here. You're hearing these guys get out there and these pundits saying, you know, they have to get their act together over there in Europe and solve this sovereign debt crisis. What get your act together? Print more money to pay off banks that made their bets?
That's what they're saying, a bailout over there.
And then you heard Bernanke, and you just saw Congress, Senate pass legislation denouncing China for pegging the yuan to the dollar and artificially keeping it low. So you can see the change of focus. They're not going to be able to save it over here, so they're going to blame them over there for the problems that we have.
And so, are you an investor in the markets? Are you an
Not
investor
I
in gold?
invest in gold. I'm on records in the Trends Journal. I'm 90% invested in gold, and my first buy of gold, by the way, was $187.50 an ounce in 1978.
And you held on to that.
That gold has got me through the ups and downs of life. And now I say 10%. I used to be in Swiss francs. I got out as soon as they announced that they were pegging it to the Swiss franc to the euro. And so I did very well in that. But I got out immediately, and of course it's lost 20% of its value since. But when you're looking at gold, I'm concerned that just as they're blaming China and Europe now for the ills that are going on in America economically, they're going to blame gold speculators for killing the dollar.
Well, like you said, they're blaming the high-frequency trading.
They're going to blame something other than themselves.
So what does that mean? They will regulate gold, they will devalue gold, they will limit gold purchases? What do you see?
Let's look what they've done before. Remember under FDR, the Federal Emergency Banking Act of 1933. They made everybody turn in their gold by law. Gold, you know, they tell you they had to run on the banks, they had to run on the banks. They had to run on the banks where people, in those days, you could take your dollar and turn it in for gold. And people didn't want the dollars anymore. That was the run.
Right.
So they passed a law as soon as he became president that you had to turn in all your dollars, all your gold bullion, all your certificates, or else you go to jail for 10 years. And if they caught you with anything, it's double the fine of what you had. They made you sell it back to, in those days the dollar was pegged to gold, at $20.62 an ounce. When they got all the dough in, all the gold in, they repegged the price of gold to $35 an ounce, which means that you, Rebecca, just lost 40% of your purchasing power. They did it before. Will they do it again? Have you gone on the friendly skies and got groped by a TSA agent?
Wow,
Do you have a GPS signal under your car if they want to kill you as a reporter, an American citizen, and sign a secret order, but we can't tell anybody, they'll do it. Are they going to do something to take our gold away from us? I think so.
Wow, that is a bold prediction.
So that's why I'm also in silver. So I'm hedging 10% with silver as a backup.
Let's talk about the presidential election. Herman Cain recently soaring in the polls on the Republican side. Everybody thinks Obama's just a one-term candidate. What are your thoughts on the bigger picture here?
If the election were held today, we'd say Obama. And